This is Deborah Atkinson. Welcome to the Flipping 50 show, where I address your top questions and the things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change your thoughts so you can flip 50 and have the life and the energy you love in this second half. My guest today is, fortunately for me, kind of like going home. So Dr. Terry Wahls is a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. So this Iowa girl is loving the connection. She's the author of The Wahls Protocol, How I Beat Progressive MS Using Paleo Principles and Functional Medicine, and the cookbook, The Wahls Protocol, Cooking for Life, the revolutionary modern paleo plan to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions. You can learn more about her work from her website, terrywahls.com. And I will put that in the show notes, all of you, but that's TERRYWAHLS.com. She hosts Wahls Protocol Seminar every August, where anyone can learn how to implement the protocol with ease and success. You can follow her on Facebook, Terry Wahls MD, and on Twitter at Terry Wahls. She's got a new book coming out, and we're going to talk to her all about her story. Terry, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am really intrigued, and I know coming across your story, it was just kind of an amazing connection. I was already out here in Boulder, but of course, reading about you and the fact that food is medicine. But I'd love for you to share your story with listeners.
Sure. So, I'm an academic internal medicine doc here at the university. And at that time in my life, I was very suspect of complementary alternative medicine. I didn't understand why people spent all that money for unproven stuff. But God works in mysterious ways. At that time, I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. And I knew that it's within 10 years, half of all newly diagnosed folks will have severe fatigue, and so severe that they cannot continue working. A third will have some sort of problem with their gait, needing a cane, walker, or wheelchair. So I sought out the best people I could find that were doing clinical research, and that was the Cleveland Clinic. And I saw their best people, took the newest drugs. And still within 3 years, my disease had converted to the progressive phase. At that point, I took chemotherapy. I continued to decline. Then I took Tizabri, one of those new biologic drugs that costs about $50,000 a year, continued to decline. And then I switched to another disease-modifying drug. And that's when it appeared to me that science was not going to stop this decline into a bedridden and quite possibly demented life. And so I began searching, reading. I started using PubMed. And I eventually started experimenting, adding vitamins and supplements based on what I was reading about other shrinking brain problems like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, Huntington's disease. And all those things, the mitochondria were not working well. And so I sought out what vitamins and supplements could help mitochondria, even though no one was yet thinking mitochondria were a problem for MS. And I was able to identify that although, I should say after 6 months, I thought I was wasting my money. I quit my vitamins because I was mad, I was cranky, but I really couldn't function at all then. 3 days later, I started the supplements again, and I could get up, go back to work. And that was really a very exciting moment because it's like, wow, that's an interesting observation. So a couple weeks later, I tried the same thing. I stopped my vitamins, again, was completely exhausted, could not function. And 3 days later, I took them back and could get up and go to work. So now I'm jazzed that, okay, I'm learning stuff that my neurologist and my primary care doc don't know to tell me about. So I'm spending more time reading. I have been assigned to the Institutional Review Board, which means I'm reviewing research studies every week. And I tell them that I really am interested in brain-related studies. So I'm getting more comfortable reading about brain clinical trials. I'm going to back up for a moment. When I was first diagnosed, 2 years after diagnosis, when I was still walking around, my Cleveland Clinic doctors told me about Lauren Cordain's work, and so I read his books, I read his papers, went to his website, and decided that there was a scientific rationale for his point of view. And so after 20 years of being a vegetarian, I went back to eating meat, and I gave up all grains, all legumes, all dairy, but continued to decline. The next year I needed the wheelchair. And so even though I was declining, I stayed with the paleo diet because I felt like at least I am doing something. I was also exercising every day, and I'd kept that up because I'd been a former athlete. But I'm declining. I'm experimenting. I'm adding my vitamins and my supplements. That seems to be helping the fatigue somewhat. So my perception is it's slowing the rate of my decline. But the summer of 2007, I'm so weak I cannot sit up anymore. I have a special recliner that I use at work, and I'm another one at home. I struggled to walk 10 feet using 2 walking canes or 2 walking sticks. I have severe fatigue by 10 in the morning. I'm struggling with brain fog. I'm losing my keys and my phone. I've had to replace my smartphone 3 times that summer. And that's the summer I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take their course on neuroprotection, and which is a lot of work because I have a fair amount of brain fog by this point, but I get through it. I have a longer list of vitamins and supplements that I start. And then a couple months later, I have another really big aha moment. It's like, well, what if I take this list of supplements and I figure out where they're in the food supply? So that's more research. And by the end of December, I'd reordered my diet, still paleo, but now I'm stressing foods based on trying to maximize intake of these 20 key nutrients. Within the month, I can tell that my fatigue is less, my mental clarity is greatly improved. And at 3 months, I can begin to walk again using a cane. And at 6 months, I'm walking around the VA hospital without a cane. At 9 months, I get on my bike for the first time, probably about 6 years, and I pedal around the block. I'm crying, my kids are crying, my wife's crying, because, when you have a progressive illness and there's no cure, you learn to take it every day, one day at a time. Even though I'd been getting steadily better, I was still in the taking one day at a time mode. I didn't know what to make of what was happening. But when I biked around the block, it felt miraculous to me. And now I was beginning to think like, well, who knows how much recovery might be possible. And I fundamentally have changed. My understanding of disease and health has changed. How I practice medicine has changed. And ultimately, the focus of my clinical research has changed.
Amazing. Can you share a little bit with us? And let me know if this is dangerous to do, but can you share a little bit about the vitamins and the supplements that seem to help the most?
So the things I started with B vitamins, creatine, carnitine, and some coenzyme Q. And I want to remind your listeners, they did not recover me. If I didn't take them, I was more exhausted. I couldn't get out of bed. So clearly they were doing something, but they did not recover me. And I also want to remind your listeners that the paleo diet did not recover me. And then when I discovered functional medicine, they gave me a longer list of supplements. That did not recover me. It was when I really integrated the ancestral health movement, functional medicine, and a food-based approach with very targeted supplement use that this dramatic change happened.
Tell me a little bit more, describe for our listeners what you just said, the ancestral health model.
So that's the term that a lot of the folks who follow the paleo diet use. They'll call it the ancestral health movement. And the paleo diet refers to eating in a way that humans would have eaten before the dawn of agriculture. So it's not grain-based. It's going to be vegetables, it'll be meat, fish. Some people do eggs. I do not. Some nuts and seeds. It's not going to include sugar. It's not going to include grains. It's not going to include legumes. Some people include dairy. I do not. And as I was designing my dietary approach, I took the ancestral health principles, which I still follow, but then I used my research of what I'd done based on what brain cells need and mitochondria need, and what the functional medicine folks taught me, so that I designed a dietary approach that was very specific for maximized nutrition for my brain and my mitochondria.
Love it. And so tell me this. So we've got a lot of people listening who don't have MS, who don't have and hope they don't ever have Parkinson's disease. Will they benefit?
Oh, sure. In this journey, I ended up having the opportunity to create a lifestyle clinic at the VA, where we took care of people who had autoimmune problems, obesity, diabetes, heart failure, any chronic medical, mental health, or neurologic problem. And we found out that having them eat this way, their energy improved. They looked about 10 years younger. The guys would come back just beaming, saying their love life had improved. The ladies come back beaming because they've lost 20 pounds without being hungry. And by the way, their love life has also improved as well.
Right. I was going to say, right, that goes both ways, right?
Yeah. And the guys also lost 20 pounds. But, the guys are excited about performance, and the women are excited about appearance.
So it is. Okay. So key parts of your dietary protocol, I think you've described them, but maybe if we can peek into your refrigerator and your cabinets, can you share it by tell us what Terry Wahls had for breakfast and lunch and what she'll have for dinner?
So I want to remind everyone, I work full time. And so I'm very mindful that I want food that tastes good, but doesn't take a long time to prepare, at least during the week.
Amen.
My morning is a smoothie. And so I will have like a green smoothie or a beet smoothie that has a lot of fat in it as well, some olive oil, phosphatidylcholine, coconut milk, fats that are all really, really helpful for my brain. Mm-hmm. In addition, I'll have some leftover protein for the night before. I also often have pickled herring on hand. So I'll have a meat or fish that's been left over. And then I go all day. Tonight, I'll whip up a skillet meal, which is, basically sauteed vegetables and a meat. Last night we had ground beef, and I had some time. So I'd roasted a squash, some beets, and we had a huge salad with all of that.
Delicious.
Yes.
So then, basically, you're doing a little bit of a fast from breakfast to dinner?
Correct. And I'll say once a week I'll do a 24-hour fast, and every couple months I'll do a 2-day or 3-day fast.
And is that nothing at all, Terry? Are you doing something?
Oh, I'll drink water.
Okay.
But, for most people, you're going to need to ease into that. You'll want to get your blood sugar nice and stable, following protocol, having low glycemic diets. And so fasting's not a requirement, but if you tolerate it, it's a great way to increase the number of your mitochondria per cell and the efficiency of your mitochondria in those cells. This is a very potent anti-aging strategy. There are a number of studies that look at this kind of approach for treating mental health issues and neurodegeneration.
Great. And I really want to clarify for listeners and with you that this is not necessarily a diet and a quick, rapid weight loss strategy. This is first, you have your other ducks in a row. You're already eating well. You already feel well. It's kind of a next step, correct?
That's right. This would be an advanced step.
Great.
The average person is just going to do the level 1. They'll feel great. And that's all they stay at.
Yeah.
They may move on to level 2, the Wahls Paleo. We have versions of the protocol that guides people who are vegetarian or vegan. I have versions of the protocol for people who want to do fasting. And I'm into that because I have progressive MS. So it's a little more aggressive approach. But the vast majority of the people that I saw in my clinics, they did great on level 1.
Fantastic. And we're talking a lot of vegetables. Do you want to give us a quota? What should we be shooting for?
So I'm a tall lady. I'm 6 foot tall. And
I'm not. Just saying.
Well, the best things come in small sizes too, though.
Bless you.
So I shoot for 9 cups of vegetables. That's measured raw. So that's 3 platefuls of vegetables and or berries over the day. And so if I have 1 plateful in my morning smoothie, then in the evening I have a big salad of greens, a plateful, and then I have my meat and vegetables in the next plate. And it's a little bit of meat and a lot of vegetables.
Love it. Love it. And I know some of you out there, if you're walking, you may have just tripped. She did say 9 cups. Okay. So I want to clarify too, is there any distinction, any specific that you shoot for in terms of raw versus cooked? Does that matter?
We one of the things we would do in our classes, we would practice pooping. We'd all poop in our chairs, stand up, turn around, look at our poop, and then describe: are you pooping rocks, pooping snake, pooping pudding, or pooping tea? So that's pretty big, broad categories. So if you're pooping rocks, you need more fiber, and then either have more raw vegetables and or some chia pudding, flaxseed pudding. And I've got great recipes for that in the book. If you're pooping snakes, you're exactly where you should be. If you're pooping pudding or tea, you need less fiber, and you probably have to quit having the raw vegetables, go to a lot of soups and stews, bone broth, until we've gotten that taken care of. And if you have any blood, you need to see your doc and have that investigated.
And we have just crossed the line for intimacy, y'all. Okay. But everybody gets that. And poop is important, right? In feeling good.
Right.
So go ahead.
Can understand the difference between a rock, a snake, pudding, and tea pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time getting that out of my head, actually. So that has a lot to do with gut health. And the word microbiome is so hot right now. That's a hot topic. How does your protocol influence that? And basically, we're talking listeners' gut bacteria and what's going on in there.
It's really very exciting. So I'm a researcher. We study MS, and using my protocol in the study of MS, we've added the microbiome analyses to what we do because the evidence continues to grow that all of our chronic diseases are very strongly linked to which bacteria are living in our bowels. And eating sugar and white flour feeds the wrong bacteria, disease-promoting bacteria. Feeding what we call microbial accessible carbohydrates, fancy word for fiber or resistant starch, or vegetables, give more fertilizer to the health-promoting bacteria. And you can spend a lot of money sitting your poop off for analysis, or you could just, have a bowel movement, stand up, turn around, look in the toilet, and decide you got snakes, rocks, or pudding. And if you have rocks, you need more fiber.
Simple.
But, yeah,
it's
very simple. We talk about adding more fermented foods and having a wider variety of foods. I challenge people. The goal is to have 200 different plant species that you consume in a year. To eat seasonally, eat in season, use more spices, more teas. But if you start keeping track and realize, I want to get to 200, it will add to your adventurism. That's because it's like, well, I'm only at 50. I really got to look at this if I'm going to get 150 more new plant species in my diet by the end of the year.
I love that. Let's talk superfoods just for a second. Are there some rock stars? So I'm hearing there's a definite need for a variety because they all offer some different micronutrients. Correct. But are there some rock stars that stand out that you're going to see rotating in your diet on a regular basis?
So this is a great segue. I like to give people sort of a structure for how we can make it more likely you'll have all the things your brain mitochondria need. So I was very keen on greens. I want a plate full of green leafy vegetables. So that can be kale, Swiss chard, beet greens, parsley, cilantro, green leaves that are edible, not poisonous. Big plateful. A lot of vitamin K, which more and more evidence about how good vitamin K is for our brain. The next category is the mushroom family, onion family, cabbage family. These vegetables will stimulate the enzymes that are involved in processing, eliminating the polluting compounds, the heavy metals, plastic solvents. They're also really good at boosting the glutathione, which is a potent antioxidant compound in our cells. And the third thing these compounds do is they help the brain make neurotransmitters. So cabbage, onion, mushroom family vegetables.
Okay.
And then the third group is what I call deeply pigmented. The color is a great marker for antioxidants. And great studies show that the more color you have, the lower the rate of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune problems, and the lower the rates of dementia. So there's also lower rates of all-cause mortality.
Fantastic. And who doesn't want that, right? Terry, can I back up just a second? And for listeners, if you've been waiting for this, I apologize for not jumping in sooner, but let's do a little vocabulary lesson, Terry, if you will. I know where you're at because of physiology. However, let's define mitochondria and their duty for all of us, just for the listeners, to be sure we're on the same page.
So the mitochondria are the little power plants that use the oxygen that we breathe to more effectively convert the energy found in sugar and amino acids and fat into adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy our cells use to run and power all the chemical reactions, the chemistry of life, really. And we first got mitochondria about 1.5 billion years ago when oxygen first emerged after the photosynthesis developed on the planet for the first time. When we had the oxygen rise, it killed off 95% of all life. The mutation that allowed mitochondria to use oxygen more effectively allowed these little tiny bacteria to thrive, and bigger bacteria came along and ate them. And this new organism was even more efficient. That new organism was the forerunners of animals. It allowed for the animal to be able to move and to develop specialization, so organs. And it really, these mitochondria, these ancient bacteria, are present in every cell in our body. And the parts of our body that need more energy to do the work of that cell, such as our brain, our retina, and our heart, have the most mitochondria per cell, like tens of thousands.
Very interesting. And, in terms of physiology and exercise, mitochondria has been studied much more recently. And the news is we can regenerate it. Older adults who train the right way can reverse the slowing of mitochondria. And essentially, it is the fountain of youth if
Absolutely.
Done right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really think that's why we very consistently see people youthen as they adopt the protocol. Very consistently, people will lose 10 years of age.
I love that word, youthen. Okay, I'm using that. All right. Another vocabulary word. And I know my audience, I know listeners, you're hearing this, but I want to clarify, what is this and how do you do it well? Including fermented foods. What are we talking about? And are there some things that call themselves or are marketed as fermented foods that we want to avoid?
Sure. So the fermented foods have used yeast or bacteria that have begun to digest that food. And so as that process happens, you'll get an increased number of the yeast and bacteria. And this is a lovely way of introducing more bacteria into my bowels to join the 100 trillion that are living in my bowels right now, and helping me digest everything that I eat and run the chemistry of my life. So I encourage the use of fermented vegetables. I don't want people to use fermented dairy products or fermented grain products because I want them to avoid grain and dairy. But as we're chatting here, I'm sipping some fermented beet kvass, which is fermented beet and water and salt. Lovely, lovely beverage. So fermented beverages. I make a kombucha, which is fermented tea beverage. You can make kefir water. I also make, using coconut milk or nutmeg, almond milk, a fermented beverage, fermented yogurt. So kefir and yogurts that way. And then I have fermented cabbages, fermented beets, fermented carrots. Fermented greens don't work out very well for me, although when I was in Asia, they served them to me as gundruk, which was fermented mustard greens. It actually was quite lovely. And so having a wide variety of fermented vegetables and fermented foods just gives you more exposures to these health-promoting bacteria, and there'll be a variety of lactobacillus species that come with that. And I'd say 100,000 years ago, humans first began fermenting foods, and that allowed us to have vegetables and food over the winter with these fermented foods. And so it really has been an integral part of our diet for many, 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 many generations.
Got it. And could a listener walk into the store and buy fermented vegetables and be okay? Everything is okay, or do they need to avoid anything?
Here's something you'll want to pay attention to. The fermented vegetable could be in the refrigerator section.
Okay.
If it says pasteurized, they killed all of the bacteria and the yeast. So there's still some health benefits, yes, but most of it was lost when you pasteurize. So it should be in a jar, and it should be in the refrigerator section. They're more expensive because of the process that you go through to get them fermented. I think it's an easy family activity to go ahead and ferment your own food. So you have to get your first batch to get started, and then you can keep it going.
Fantastic. Great tips. And Terry, I want to ask you something. So I know that this is often an obstacle for people when they're traveling. Number one, it can be an obstacle at home as well based on time. But how do you handle that? What are your recommendations for people traveling and still eating healthfully?
It is so much easier now than it used to be. Mm-hmm. So that's my first observation. Mm-hmm. When I'm going out, I explain to the wait staff that I have a severe life-threatening reaction to gluten and dairy. So what would they recommend? And usually the chef comes out, talks to me, and we agree he's going to give me a big platter of vegetables and some grilled meat. So that's one approach. The other thing I'll certainly admit is it's difficult to eat the volume of vegetables that I'm used to eating on the road. Mm-hmm. So cabbages travel really well. And so I will pack a cabbage in my luggage, and that way I can keep eating on my cabbage, and that'll work easily for a weekend road trip. I have
Fantastic.
also made liver jerky, and I've taken that for road trips as well.
Mhm. So my guess is that given all of the vegetables that you're eating and you're definitely getting in healthy fat and protein, you don't actually have a craving for sugar or room for it.
No, I do let folks know that we have fertilized sugar-loving yeast and bacteria in our bowels. So when they stop, they'll have a lot of craving. They'll go through withdrawal. They'll have headaches. They'll be quite irritable, and they will feel like I'm the doctor from hell. They can hang in there. This will pass, and usually by the time they see us at 4 weeks, they are feeling remarkably better. But I do
So
warn.
there is a specific reason why you don't schedule that next meeting until 4 weeks.
Yes, I want to give them enough time to have gotten past the misery.
And love you again. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your brand new book, the one coming out. And I believe that's on April 4th. So we're getting excited.
Well, one of the things that we did in our lifestyle clinic is I had cooking classes, and I began to appreciate how many people don't know how to cook, either never learned or forgot how. And so I wanted to give the public another tool for learning. Cooking can be fun. It's enjoyable. It's a lovely activity with your children and your grandchildren, and that you can implement the Wahls protocol. You can save money while doing that, but you'll have to cook. And so I just wanted to make that easier for everyone. We have great resources, and I made a template for how to do skillet meals, how to do soups, stews, holiday treats. And we have, excuse me, the template filled in. And so I have several recipes of how I do things. And then I let you know how you could make adjustments so that you feel much more comfortable. The goal is to have you feel very comfortable cooking with or without a recipe, and to learn how to be very comfortable with improvising with the stuff you have on hand.
Such a great idea. So you're really not making people codependent. You're co-collaborating and getting them to use their own preferences based on your protocol.
Correct. And because the people I serve at the Vets Hospital, particularly in my lifestyle clinic, were often on disability, didn't have money, and money really was a huge challenge. So I, made it clear that nope, it doesn't have to be organic, it doesn't have to be grass-fed. If you can afford it, great. But if you can't, go ahead and get canned vegetables, but drink the juice. Get foods that are in season. We talked about fishing, hunting, foraging, talked a lot about gardening, and explained that you have to cook at home. And I did teach people how to do meatless meals if money was that tight. And we talked about here in Iowa, there's too many deer, and so many communities have sharpshooting hunt seasons and have a lot of frozen venison that is available for anyone who just would like to have some venison. And of course, a lot of folks have friends and neighbors who are hunters, so getting access to venison is really not that difficult out here.
No, I've hit a couple of those. Too many deers. Okay.
Yeah.
They hit me actually, but all right. So I'm going to definitely in the link let you know, listeners, where to go, learn more about the cookbook and get your hands on that and how to reach to get more of Terry. But before we go, Terry, I ask everyone, is there a question you wish I would have asked you or something you want to leave listeners with?
I want people to know that we do research. So if we have people with MS who are wanting to know if they could be in my clinical trials, I'll make sure you have those to add those links into your show notes as well. We have studies where people have to come to Iowa, and I have links to some studies where you can just do some surveys online where you're at. So I think if we're going to help the practicing physicians understand how powerful diet and lifestyle is. We need to have published research that shows just how powerful diet and lifestyle is.
Amazing. Terry, thank you so much for being here. But beyond that, thank you for the role model you're being and the research you're doing to improve lives everywhere. If you are listening and you have a question, I will provide all the links for you so you can reach out to Terry. And if you have a question you want to submit, leave it below the show link at flipping50.com, all spelled out, no numbers. And join us on the Facebook fan page at Flipping50 TV. If you enjoyed this show, please leave a rating in iTunes. It really helps. And then share this with a friend and spread the word so you can surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. What are you waiting for? Start Flipping 50 today.